I walked into Velvet and Vine that Tuesday afternoon looking for one thing: a dress for my company's annual gala. The boutique sat on the corner of 5th and Main, all glass windows and marble floors, the kind of place that whispered wealth before you even stepped inside. I'd driven past it 100 times, always intimidated by the elegant displays and the impeccably dressed women who floated in and out carrying signature purple shopping bags. But I'd worked hard for my success. My tech company had just closed a major deal, and I deserved to celebrate in style. I was done shopping in the safe stores, the ones with fluorescent lighting and clearance racks. I wanted something special. The moment I entered, I felt eyes on me. A sales associate glanced up from her phone, her smile freezing when she saw me. I told myself I was imagining it and headed toward the evening gowns, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. I found it on the 3rd rack, a stunning emerald silk dress with delicate beading along the neckline. Size 14, my size. I pulled it from the rack, already imagining how it would look under the gala lights. That's when the music stopped. Odalise, the owner, appeared from behind a display like a shark sensing blood in the water. She marched toward me, her designer heels clicking against the marble with sharp, angry sounds. Before I could even speak, she snatched the dress from my hands. "Please don't stretch the merchandise," Odalise said, her voice cutting through the quiet boutique like a knife. She held the dress away from me as if I'd contaminated it. Every head in the store turned to watch. "I was just going to try it on," I stammered, my face already burning. "We don't cater to heavy clientele," she continued, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her lips curled into a cruel smile. "There's a discount tent store at the mall, for people like you." She looked me up and down with obvious disgust. "You should leave before you break the floorboards." Laughter rippled through the store. Other customers exchanged knowing glances and smirks. A teenage girl near the accessories wall giggled into her hand. I stood there, frozen, feeling exactly like I had in middle school when the popular girls mocked my lunch or my clothes or my body. All the success, all the money, all the confidence I'd built over the years crumbled in an instant. I was 13 again, worthless and ashamed. "Get out," Odalise said, turning her back on me dismissively. I left. I walked out of that store with tears streaming down my face, got into my car, and sobbed into my steering wheel. My name is Nomi, and I didn't just leave that store behind. I went to the real estate office next door. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, crying so hard I could barely breathe. My phone kept buzzing, but I ignored it. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to go home, order takeout, and pretend this day never happened. But the buzzing wouldn't stop. Finally, I grabbed my phone and saw dozens of notifications flooding my screen. Tags, mentions, comments, all linking to the same TikTok video. Someone had filmed the entire incident. The video showed everything: Odalise snatching the dress, her cruel words, the laughter, my face red with humiliation as I fled the store. The caption read, "Boutique owner publicly shames customer for her weight. This is disgusting." It had 2 million views already. The number kept climbing as I watched. The comments were split down the middle. Half the people defended me, calling Odalise a monster and demanding boycotts. The other half made jokes about my weight, posted pig emojis, and told me I should have known better than to shop somewhere classy. But what made my blood run cold was Odalise's response. She'd commented from the store's official account. "We maintain standards here. Exclusivity isn't for everyone. Our brand caters to a certain clientele, and we make no apologies for that." She wasn't sorry. She wasn't embarrassed. She was proud. My sadness transformed into something else entirely. Something cold and hard and focused. I wiped my tears, opened my laptop, and started searching. I didn't look up lawyers or write angry reviews. I went straight to the property records database, a skill I'd learned when I started investing in real estate 5 years ago. If you want to hurt a business, you don't attack the business. You attack its foundation. Velvet and Vine occupied a beautiful historic building, all exposed brick and original crown molding. Prime location, premium foot traffic, worth at least $3 million. But Odalys didn't own it. She was a tenant. I dug deeper, pulling up tax records and deed transfers. The building belonged to an elderly man named Eldrick Waverly, aged 78, who had owned the property for 40 years. And according to the listings I found, he'd put it up for sale 3 months ago. The listing was still active, still available. The price was reasonable for the location, but it noted tenant occupied in red letters, real estate code for this might be complicated. I read through the listing agent's notes. Current tenant has lease through 2025, but is difficult to work with. Previous buyers backed out due to tenant disputes. Difficult to work with, that was putting it mildly. I picked up my phone and called Thorne, my corporate attorney. He answered on the second ring. "Thorne, I need you to buy a building for me," I said. "5th and Main, cash offer 20% over asking, but there's one condition." "What's that?" "The current tenant can't know I'm the buyer until after the deed is signed." Thorne laughed. "You're the woman from that video, aren't you? Know me, you're absolutely wicked." "I'm not wicked," I replied, staring at Odalys's smug comment on my phone screen. "I'm just about to become her landlord." Before I could buy the building, I needed to inspect it. Standard procedure for any real estate purchase, but I couldn't show my face there. Odalys would recognize me instantly, and if she knew I was interested in buying, she might try to interfere with the sale. I called Caspian, my business partner and best friend since college. "I need you to do something slightly insane for me," I told him. "Does it involve that boutique owner who humiliated you?" "Maybe." He laughed. "I'm in. What do you need?" 24 hours later, Caspian walked into Velvet and Vine wearing an expensive suit and a hidden camera disguised as a button. He introduced himself as a property consultant, conducting a routine building inspection on behalf of a potential buyer. I watched the live feed from my office, my heart pounding as he moved through the space. The boutique was even more elaborate than I'd realized. Custom shelving, designer lighting, imported Italian marble. Then Caspian entered the back room, and my breath caught. Odalys was there, screaming at her young assistant. "You're useless, Leona, absolutely useless. How many times do I have to tell you to steam the dresses properly?" The girl Leona looked terrified, her hands shaking as she held a steamer. "I'm sorry, I'll fix it." "You're sorry. Sorry doesn't sell clothes." Odalys grabbed a dress from Leona's hands and threw it at her face. But what caught Caspian's camera and my full attention was the wall behind them. Or rather, where a wall should have been. "Did you see that back wall?" Caspian asked when he called me from his car an hour later. "The one that's just gone." "I saw it," I said, already pulling up the building's original blueprints on my computer. I'd requested them from the city's archives that morning. According to the blueprints, that wall was load-bearing. It was essential to the building's structural integrity, and Odalys had demolished it to install what Caspian had overheard her calling a skinny mirror section, an entire area dedicated to mirrors that made customers look thinner. "She knocked down a load-bearing wall for vanity mirrors," Caspian said, his voice filled with disbelief. "That's insane. That's dangerous." "That's leverage," I corrected, already texting Thorne to send over Odalys's lease agreement. The lease arrived in my inbox within the hour. It was a commercial lease from 1998, back when Eldrick first rented the space to Odalys's predecessor. Odalys had taken over the lease 5 years ago when she bought the boutique's business assets. I read through every clause, every provision, every piece of fine print. And there, on page 7, I found exactly what I needed. Any structural modifications to the premises require written consent from the property owner. Failure to obtain such consent, or unauthorized alterations to load-bearing structures, constitute grounds for immediate lease termination without notice. Odalys had probably never read her own lease. She'd certainly never asked Eldrick for permission to demolish that wall. She thought she was untouchable because she bullied an old man who didn't want confrontation. She didn't know a new shark was entering the water. And this shark had teeth. I met Eldrick at his lawyer's office on a Thursday morning. He shuffled in with a cane, looking tired and relieved in equal measure. When Thorne introduced me as the buyer, Eldrick's eyes widened. "You're the young lady from that video," he said softly. "The one Odalys humiliated." I nodded, surprised he'd made the connection. Eldrick sank into a chair and sighed deeply. "That woman has made my life a nightmare for 5 years. She hasn't paid the water bill in 6 months, claims it's my responsibility as the owner. She calls me senile when I ask about maintenance issues. Last month, she told me I was too stupid to understand modern business." He looked at me with something like hope. "I wanted to sell this building 2 years ago, but no one wants to deal with her. She scared off 4 potential buyers." I pulled out my checkbook. "Mr. Waverly, I'm not scared of her, and I know exactly how to handle bullies." I wrote a check for $2.5 million, 20% over his asking price. Eldrick stared at it like I'd handed him a winning lottery ticket. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "She's going to make your life difficult." I smiled, thinking about that lease clause. "Mr. Waverly, I'm not the one who's going to have a difficult life." We signed the papers. The deed was recorded that afternoon. The building on 5th and Main, including Velvet and Vine, was now officially mine. I didn't call Odalys to tell her. I decided a personal visit would be much more satisfying. I walked into Velvet and Vine the next morning wearing my best business suit and carrying my new deed in my purse. The same sales associate from before glanced up, and I saw recognition flash across her face. But before she could say anything, Odalys emerged from the back room. She saw me and her face twisted with rage. "You," she shrieked, pointing at me like I was something disgusting she'd found on her shoe. "I told you to leave. You're not welcome here." She snapped her fingers at the security guard by the door. "Remove her. She's trespassing." The security guard started toward me, looking uncomfortable. "Actually," I said calmly, reaching into my purse, "you're the one who's trespassing." I pulled out the deed and held it up so Odalys could see it clearly. Her eyes scanned the document, and I watched her face transform from anger to confusion to horror as she read the name on the title. "That's impossible," she whispered. "It's very possible," I replied. "As of yesterday afternoon, I own this building, which makes you my tenant, and according to your lease, rent is due on the 1st of every month." Odalys snatched the deed from my hands, her fingers shaking as she read it more carefully. The color drained from her face. "This is some kind of trick," she said weakly. "No trick, just business." I smiled at her the same way she'd smiled at me when she called me fat. "Welcome to the new management." Odalys's shock lasted about 30 seconds before her survival instincts kicked in. I watched her face change, the cruelty sliding away like a mask being removed. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Well," she said, her voice artificially bright, "a new owner, how wonderful. I'm sure we can work out a mutually beneficial arrangement." She gestured toward her office. "Why don't we sit down and discuss terms? I've been a loyal tenant here for 5 years. Surely that counts for something." "It does," I agreed. "It counts for exactly what's written in your lease, which, by the way, I've reviewed thoroughly with my attorney." Her smile faltered. "Your attorney?" "Thorne Blackwell, corporate real estate law. Perhaps you've heard of him." I saw the recognition in her eyes. Everyone in the business world knew Thorne. He was famous for being ruthless. "Now," I continued, pulling out a folder from my bag, "let's discuss your rent. Your current monthly payment is $3,000, a rate that was locked in back in 1998 and hasn't increased since. That's significantly below market value for this location." Odalys's fake smile was cracking. "The previous owner never complained." "I'm not the previous owner. Effective immediately, your rent is being adjusted to current market value. That's $9,000 per month, a 300% increase." "That's insane," Odalys's voice rose. "You can't just—" "I can, and I have. The lease allows for market rate adjustments with 30 days' notice. You'll receive formal notification today. First payment is due in 2 weeks." Odalys's face had gone from pale to bright red. "This is discrimination. You're targeting me because of that stupid video." "I'm targeting you because you're paying 1/3 of what this space is worth. The video is just how I found out the building was for sale." I turned to leave. 2 weeks, Odalys. Don't be late." I should have known Odalys wouldn't go down quietly. 3 days after our conversation, my assistant buzzed me at the office. "Nomi, there's a news crew in the lobby asking for you." I went downstairs to find a reporter and cameraman waiting. The reporter, a woman in her 40s with aggressive highlights, thrust a microphone in my face the moment I appeared. "Ms. Nomi, we're following up on allegations that you're using your wealth to force a small, female-owned business out of its location. Would you care to comment?" I blinked at her. "Excuse me." "Odalys Martinez, owner of Velvet and Vine, claims you purchased her building specifically to drive her out of business in retaliation for a minor customer service incident. She says you're raising her rent by 300%, making it impossible for her to continue operating." Minor customer service incident. That's what Odalys was calling it. The reporter continued. "Ms. Martinez says you're a corporate vulture preying on a successful woman entrepreneur. She started a petition calling for rent control measures and accusing you of abuse of power." I could see what Odalys was doing. She was spinning herself as the victim, leaving out the part where she publicly humiliated me. She was trying to use public opinion to force me to lower the rent. "Do you have a comment?" the reporter pressed. I smiled. "Actually, yes. Would you like to come up to my office? I have something to show you." The reporter glanced at her cameraman, then nodded. "Sure." They followed me upstairs. This was going to be satisfying. I led the news crew into my conference room and gestured for them to sit. "You said Odalys described our interaction as a minor customer service incident. Is that correct?" The reporter nodded, her pen poised over her notepad. "She said there was a misunderstanding about sizing and that you overreacted." "Interesting." I opened my laptop and turned it to face them. "This is the security footage from Velvet and Vine from last Tuesday. I obtained it legally as the building owner. Watch." I pressed play. The footage showed everything, me entering the store, pulling the dress from the rack, Odalys snatching it away. The audio was crystal clear. "Please don't stretch the merchandise. We don't cater to heavy clientele. There's a discount tent store at the mall for people like you. Get out before you break the floorboards." The reporter's eyes widened. Her cameraman muttered something under his breath. But I wasn't finished. I pulled up my phone and showed them screenshots of the emails Eldrick had forwarded me, emails where Odalys called him senile trash and a doddering old fool who should be in a nursing home, not managing property. Then I showed them the lease violations I'd documented, the unpaid water bills, the structural damage she'd done without permission. "This isn't about revenge," I said quietly. "This is about a tenant who's been abusing both customers and landlords for years. I'm simply enforcing the terms of a lease she signed." The reporter looked at her cameraman. "Can we run this?" "Please do," I said, "and make sure you include the part where she calls me heavy clientele. I want people to see exactly who she is." The story aired that evening. By morning, everything had changed. The news piece went viral within hours. My phone wouldn't stop ringing, reporters requesting interviews, lawyers offering to represent me, even a few brands asking if I wanted to partner on a body positivity campaign. But the most important call came from an unexpected source. I was leaving my office building when someone grabbed my arm. I spun around to find a young woman, maybe 23, with dark circles under her eyes and a terrified expression. "Ms. Nomi, I'm Leona. I worked for Odalys." I recognized her from Caspian's video, the assistant Odalys had screamed at. "Are you okay?" I asked, concerned. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Leona glanced around nervously. "I need to talk to you, somewhere private." We went to a coffee shop 2 blocks away. Leona ordered tea but didn't drink it, just wrapped her hands around the cup like she needed something to hold on to. She's going to destroy everything before you can evict her, Leona said. She's already talking about it. Burning inventory, damaging fixtures, whatever she can do to hurt you. Why are you telling me this? Because she's a monster, Leona's voice shook. She hasn't paid me in 6 weeks. She tells customers I'm stupid right in front of me. Yesterday she threw a shoe at my head because I folded a sweater wrong. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Leona, I need you to tell me everything you know. But first, are you okay with me recording this? She nodded. There's more. She's been selling defective items as samples at full price, and she's cooking the books. The sales numbers she reports to the mall association are fake. She's been laundering money through the store. My eyes widened. Laundering money. Her boyfriend is involved in something, I don't know what, but he brings cash, lots of it, and she runs it through the boutique as sales. Then she writes checks to fake vendors. This was bigger than I'd thought, much bigger. Leona, I'm not going to fire you when I evict her, but I need you to help me document everything. She started crying with relief. Thank you so much. I had an insider now, and Odalise had no idea the walls were closing in. Armed with Leona's information, I had Thorne draft a formal notice to cure or quit. It was a legal document giving Odalise 7 days to fix the structural damage she'd caused to the building, specifically, to restore the load-bearing wall she'd demolished or face immediate eviction. 7 days to rebuild a load-bearing wall was impossible. The permits alone would take 3 weeks, but that was the point. I was giving her an impossible task, documenting her failure and creating an ironclad legal reason to evict her. Thorne delivered the notice himself, with a process server to witness it. Odalise signed for it, and according to the process server, she turned an interesting shade of purple when she read it. That night, Caspian called me at home. The security cameras at the building just went offline. I sat up straight, all of them. Every single one, all at the same time. That's not a coincidence. I called the monitoring company. They confirmed that someone had physically disconnected the cameras from inside the building. Can you get me access to the feed from before they went down? I asked. Sure, but why? Just send it, now. The footage arrived in my email 10 minutes later. I watched as Odalise entered the building after hours, using her key. She looked around, spotted the cameras, and systematically unplugged each one. Then she pulled out a bottle of bleach from her bag. I called the police immediately. I need to report vandalism in progress at 5th and Main. 2 patrol cars arrived within minutes. I met them outside the building with my key and the security footage. She's destroying my property, I explained. She's inside right now. The officers entered and found Odalise in the main boutique area, pouring bleach across the expensive hardwood floors. This is my store, she screamed as they stopped her. I can do what I want. Actually, one officer said, looking at me, she's destroying your property. That's criminal mischief. They escorted her out. The floors were ruined, $30,000 in damage, according to the restoration estimate I got the next day. But I had her on camera, and the police report gave me everything I needed. The next morning, Thorne and I went to court to file for an emergency restraining order. We brought the police report, the security footage, photos of the damaged floors, and documentation of the lease violations. The judge reviewed everything quickly. Ms. Martinez has clearly demonstrated a pattern of destructive behavior. I'm granting the restraining order. She is prohibited from entering the premises at 5th and Main without a police escort and the property owner's explicit permission. Odalise wasn't even present. Her lawyer claimed she was too emotionally distressed to attend. The judge wasn't sympathetic. Ms. Martinez needs to understand that this is a legal matter, not an emotional one. She signed a lease, she violated that lease, and now she's facing the consequences. With the restraining order in place, Odalise couldn't enter her own boutique. The queen of fashion, as she called herself in all her marketing materials, was now banned from her own castle. But I needed to secure the property before she found another way to cause damage. I hired a locksmith to change all the locks and installed new security cameras with remote monitoring. Then I did something I'd been wanting to do since the day I bought the building. I went inside to do a full inventory of the space. What I found in the back room changed everything. Leona met me there, her hands shaking as she unlocked the door to a storage area I hadn't known existed. "She told me never to tell anyone about this room," Leona whispered. "She said if I did, she'd make sure I never worked in fashion again." The room was hidden behind a full-length mirror that swung open like a door. Inside were boxes stacked floor to ceiling, designer handbags with luxury brand logos, hundreds of them. Thorne picked one up and examined it carefully, turning it over in his hands. He'd grown up wealthy, he knew luxury goods. "These aren't real," he said quietly. "These are high-quality counterfeits." My breath caught, all of them. Leona nodded miserably. She's been selling them as authentic for years. That's how she could afford to run the boutique even with low rent. Her markup was insane because she bought fakes for $50 and sold them for $2,000. Odalys wasn't just mean. She wasn't just a bad tenant. She was running a criminal enterprise. I didn't just call my lawyer this time. I called the fraud departments of every luxury brand Odalys had been counterfeiting. Hermes, Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Gucci, all of them. They didn't send letters. They didn't send lawyers. They sent federal agents. 2 days later, I stood in my office watching as 3 black SUVs pulled up outside Velvet and Vine. Men and women in dark suits with badges got out, carrying boxes and equipment. This wasn't a landlord dispute anymore. This was a federal investigation into trademark infringement and fraud. The penalties weren't just civil fines, they were prison time. I'd gone from wanting to evict Odalys to potentially sending her to federal prison. Thorne stood next to me, watching through the window. "You realize this has gone far beyond revenge, right?" "I never wanted revenge," I said honestly. "I just wanted justice. If she'd just apologized, if she'd shown even a shred of human decency, maybe I would have let it go. But she doubled down. She tried to destroy me, ruin my property, paint herself as the victim." I turned to look at him. "She did this to herself." My phone rang. It was Agent Torres from the FBI's Intellectual Property Division. "Ms. Nomi, we're going to need that back room sealed as evidence. Can you give us access?" "Absolutely, whatever you need." "One more thing. Where is Ms. Martinez now?" "I have no idea. She's banned from the premises." Agent Torres was quiet for a moment. "We'll find her. And Ms. Nomi, thank you for reporting this. These counterfeiting operations fund serious criminal enterprises. You may have helped us break up something much bigger." I hung up feeling oddly hollow. This had started as humiliation in a boutique. Now it was a federal case. Odalys found me in the parking garage that evening. I was walking to my car when I heard footsteps running behind me. I turned to see her, looking nothing like the polished boutique owner who'd humiliated me weeks ago. Her hair was messy. Her makeup was smeared. Her expensive clothes looked slept in. The arrogance that had defined her was cracking, replaced by something desperate and dangerous. "You ruined my life," she screamed, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. "You ruined everything, all because you couldn't take a joke about your weight." I stopped walking and turned to face her fully. "A joke? You publicly humiliated me. You've been abusing employees, defrauding customers, selling counterfeit goods, and destroying property. I didn't ruin your life, Odalys. I just turned on the lights. I had a business. I had a reputation. Built on cruelty and crime," I said calmly. "You're not a victim here. You're just finally facing consequences." She stepped closer, and for a moment, I thought she might try to hit me. But then her face crumpled and she started crying, harsh, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "I'm going to lose everything," she whispered. "Yes," I agreed. "You are, and you're the one who's ugly in the light, not me." I got in my car and drove away, leaving her crying in the parking garage. I felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just tired. The federal raid happened on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't there, but Leona filmed it on her phone and sent me the video. Federal agents in windbreakers swarmed Velvet and Vine, carrying out box after box of counterfeit inventory. Odalise stood on the sidewalk, held back by police, screaming that this was illegal, that I'd planted the evidence, that she was being framed. No one believed her. The local news covered it live. The headlines scrolling across the bottom of the screen read, "Exclusive boutique raided by FBI, owner accused of selling counterfeit luxury goods." By noon, the boutique was stripped to the bare walls. Everything was gone, the custom shelving, the designer lighting. Even the notorious, no heavy clientele policy sign that had hung near the fitting rooms. I'd specifically asked the agents to make sure that sign ended up in a dumpster. They'd been happy to oblige. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. The store that had judged people by their appearance was now being judged itself and found completely hollow. Caspian came over that evening with wine. We sat on my couch, not really celebrating, just processing everything that had happened. "You know this is going to follow you, right?" he said. "The woman who destroyed a business owner over an insult." "Let it," I replied. "Anyone who thinks what she did was just an insult wasn't paying attention. She was running a criminal operation and happened to be cruel on top of it." "Still," Caspian said carefully, "some people are going to see you as vindictive." "I can live with that. Can Odalise live with federal charges?" He raised his glass. "Fair point." Odalise's last desperate move came 3 days after the raid. She went live on Instagram, her face blotchy from crying, her voice shaking as she spoke to the camera. "I want to talk about what's really happening here," she began. "I'm being targeted by a vindictive woman who couldn't handle honest feedback about her appearance. She's using her money and connections to destroy a small business owner, a woman trying to make it in a male-dominated industry." I watched the live stream from my office, my jaw clenched. "This isn't about counterfeit goods or lease violations," Odalise continued. "Those are excuses. This is about revenge. This is about woke culture destroying anyone who doesn't bow down and apologize for having standards." The comments on her live stream were initially sympathetic. People saying they'd boycott my company, calling me a bully, demanding I apologize. Then Leona joined the chat. "Where's my paycheck, Odalise? You haven't paid me in 3 months." The comment appeared in the feed, and I watched Odalise's face go pale as she read it. "That's not. We discussed that, Leona. You know the business has been." But Leona kept commenting. "You threw a shoe at my head. You called me stupid in front of customers. You made me lie about the handbags being authentic." Other former employees started piling on. The comment section turned against Odalise in real time. People who'd worked for her shared their own horror stories. Customers who'd bought counterfeit goods demanded refunds. Within 20 minutes, Odalise's live stream had become a public confession of everything she'd done wrong. She ended it abruptly, but the damage was done. People had screen-recorded everything. The narrative had completely flipped. She wasn't the victim anymore. She was exactly what I'd said, someone finally facing consequences. The eviction deadline arrived on the 1st of the month. Odalise had 7 days to cure the lease violations. She'd done nothing. The sheriff's office sent deputies to formally return possession of the property to me. I met them at the building with Thorne and a professional moving crew. Odalise was already there, standing on the sidewalk with a small group of supporters holding signs that said, "Support small business," and "Stop corporate bullying." She tried to organize a protest, but only 5 people had shown up. The deputies knocked on the door, a formality since the restraining order meant Odalise couldn't be inside. When no one answered, they used my key to open it. The space was completely empty. Odalise had already removed what little inventory hadn't been seized by the FBI. All that remained was damage, the bleach-stained floors, the demolished wall, and garbage scattered across the once pristine boutique. "Ma'am, you need to step back," one deputy said as Odalise tried to push past them. "This is my store," she screamed. "You can't do this." "Ma'am, you are in violation of a restraining order. Step back now or you'll be arrested." She didn't step back. She lunged forward, trying to get past the deputies into the building. They had no choice but to restrain her. As they put handcuffs on her wrists, Odalise turned her head to look at me. "Do you know who I am?" she shrieked. I walked closer, meeting her eyes directly. "Yes, you're a former tenant, and you're trespassing." The deputies led her away to their patrol car. Her supporters dispersed quietly, probably realizing this wasn't the righteous cause they'd thought it was. I stood in the doorway of the empty boutique and felt nothing but relief. The space smelled like bleach and desperation. I hired a restoration crew to fix the floors and repair the structural damage Odalise had caused. The contractor whistled when he saw the demolished wall. "Whoever took this down had no idea what they were doing," he said. "Another few months and this whole section might have collapsed. You're lucky you caught it when you did." The repairs took 3 weeks. During that time, I thought carefully about what I wanted to do with the space. I could rent it to another high-end boutique, make good money, and walk away. But that felt empty. I didn't just want to win. I wanted to replace Odalise with something better, something that represented the opposite of everything she'd stood for. I called Clarabelle, a young designer I'd met at a networking event months ago. She made beautiful clothes for all body types, but she struggled to get her designs into stores because most boutique owners told her there was no market for plus-size fashion. "Clarabelle, I have a retail space," I told her. "Prime location, 5th and Main. I want to offer you the first year rent-free. Build your brand, get established, test your market." She was quiet for a long moment. "What's the catch?" "Just one rule. Everyone is welcome. No matter their size, their budget, or their background. This store judges no one." Clarabelle started crying on the phone. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious. Are you interested?" "When can I start?" We spent the next month transforming the space. Gone were the intimidating displays and the cold marble. We installed warm lighting, comfortable seating areas, and full-length mirrors that showed you exactly what you looked like. No tricks, no distortions. The sign, Velvet and Vine, came down. In its place, Clarabelle hung a new sign, The Golden Hour. While Clarabelle prepared for the opening, Odalise made one final attempt to hurt me. She filed a lawsuit claiming wrongful eviction, discrimination, and emotional distress. She was demanding $3 million in damages. Thorne showed up to court carrying a binder 3 inches thick. Inside was everything: the lease violations, the police reports, the federal raid documentation, testimony from Leona and other former employees, photos of the damage, and documentation of every single crime Odalise had committed. The judge reviewed the binder for nearly an hour. Then he looked at Odalise's lawyer and said, "Counselor, I strongly suggest your client withdraw this suit. If she proceeds, I will have no choice but to issue sanctions for filing a frivolous lawsuit." Odalise stood up. "This isn't frivolous. She destroyed my business because I hurt her feelings." "Ms. Martinez," the judge said sternly, "you violated your lease, destroyed property, assaulted an employee, and are currently under federal investigation for trademark fraud. The only person who destroyed your business was you. Case dismissed with prejudice." He banged his gavel. "Furthermore, Ms. Martinez, you are ordered to pay Ms. Nomi's legal fees in the amount of $45,000. You have 60 days. Odalise's face went white. She didn't have $45,000. The federal government had frozen her assets pending their investigation. As we left the courthouse, Thorne put a hand on my shoulder. "She's bankrupt, completely. The legal fees, the federal fines. The restitution to the brands she defrauded. She'll be paying this off for the rest of her life." I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. "She did this to herself," I said quietly. "Yes," Thorne agreed. "She absolutely did." The grand opening of the Golden Hour happened on a Saturday in October, 6 months after Odalise had called me fat and told me to leave. The line to get in wrapped around the block. Clarabelle had invited plus-size influencers, body positivity activists, and regular customers who'd been shut out of high-end fashion for years. The boutique was packed with people of every size, age, and background. I stood by the ribbon with Clarabelle, who was crying happy tears. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered. "My own store, my designs on display." "You earned this," I told her. "Your talent earned this." We cut the ribbon together, and the crowd cheered. People poured into the store, trying on clothes, taking photos, sharing their excitement on social media. Within an hour, the golden hour was trending locally. A reporter from the same news station that had covered Odalis's raid approached me. "Ms. Nomi, can we get a statement about the transformation of this space?" "This store is proof that fashion should be inclusive," I said, "that everyone deserves to feel beautiful and welcomed. What happened here before was wrong. What's happening now is how it should have always been." The reporter nodded, then asked, "There's someone watching from across the street. Do you want to comment?" I looked where she was pointing. Odalis stood on the opposite sidewalk, partially hidden behind a parked car, watching the celebration. Our eyes met across the distance. She looked smaller somehow, broken. The designer clothes were gone, replaced with jeans and a plain t-shirt. The arrogance had been stripped away, leaving only defeat. I raised my glass of champagne in her direction, not mockingly, not cruelly, just acknowledging that she was there and that I'd seen her. She turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. That evening, after the opening celebrations ended, I stood alone in the golden hour, looking at what we'd created. Clarabelle's designs hung beautifully on the racks. The dressing rooms had comfortable seating and good lighting. The atmosphere was warm and welcoming. This space, which had once been a temple to exclusion and cruelty, was now a place of inclusion and joy. Caspian found me there, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He gave me one and stood beside me, surveying the transformation. "You did good," he said simply. "We did good," I corrected. "None of this happens without you going in with that hidden camera, without you believing me." "So what's next?" he asked. "You've got a successful tech company, a real estate investment that's about to be very profitable, and you're a minor celebrity in the body positivity world. What does Nomi do for an encore?" I thought about it, sipping my coffee. I think I find more Clarabelles, more talented people who can't get a break because they don't fit someone's narrow idea of what success looks like. I help them the way I wish someone had helped me when I was starting out. "That sounds expensive." "I can afford it," I smiled. "Turns out humiliating someone in public is bad for business. Several of Odalis's former customers have reached out to invest in my company. They liked seeing someone stand up to a bully." Caspian laughed. "So in a weird way, she actually helped your career." "She taught me something important," I said, more seriously. "She taught me that staying silent when someone hurts you doesn't make you noble. It just gives them permission to hurt someone else." We finished our coffee in comfortable silence, then locked up the boutique and walked out into the cool October evening. My phone buzzed with notifications, messages of support, interview requests, and business opportunities. But one notification caught my eye. It was an email from Leona. "Thank you for believing me. I start my new job next week at an ethical boutique downtown. For the first time in years, I'm excited about fashion again." I smiled and pocketed my phone. 3 months later, I received an official letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Odalis had pleaded guilty to multiple counts of trademark counterfeiting and fraud. She was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison and ordered to pay over $2 million in restitution to the brands she'd defrauded. The letter thanked me for my cooperation in the investigation and noted that my evidence had been crucial to their case. I filed the letter away and didn't think about it much. Odalis was no longer my concern. She was paying for her crimes, and that was justice enough. The golden hour continued to thrive. Clarabelle hired 3 employees, all people who'd been rejected from other fashion jobs for not fitting the image retailers wanted. Her sales exceeded projections by 40%. She called me one evening, ecstatic. "A magazine wants to feature us. They're doing a whole spread on inclusive fashion, and we're the lead story." "That's incredible, Clarabelle. You've earned it." "No," she said firmly. "We've earned it. None of this happens without you taking a chance on me. You were always talented, I replied. You just needed the opportunity. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. 6 months ago, I'd been crying in my car, humiliated and broken. Now I was sitting in a penthouse apartment I'd bought with my own money, running a successful company and helping others achieve their dreams. The woman who tried to destroy me was in prison. The business she'd run through cruelty and crime was gone, and in its place was something beautiful and good. My name is Nomi. Someone tried to make me feel small, so I bought the whole damn building, evicted her, and replaced her with something better. That's not revenge, that's justice, and it tastes like champagne and redemption. A year after that terrible day in Velvet and Vine, I stood in the same spot where Odalys had humiliated me, but everything was different now. The golden hour was celebrating its first anniversary, and the boutique was filled with happy customers and success stories. Clarabelle had expanded into custom designs and online sales. She'd been featured in 3 major fashion magazines and had a waiting list for her pieces. The girl who couldn't get anyone to carry her designs was now one of the hottest names in inclusive fashion. Leona had become Clarabelle's operations manager, thriving in an environment where kindness was valued as much as competence. She'd started a support group for people who'd experienced workplace abuse, helping others find their voice the way I'd helped her find hers. The building itself had become something of a landmark. Tour guides brought people past it, telling the story of the boutique owner who learned that cruelty has consequences. Some people called me vindictive, others called me a hero. I didn't care much about either label. I knew the truth. I hadn't destroyed Odalys, she'd destroyed herself. I just refused to be her victim. My tech company had doubled in size. My real estate portfolio had grown. But more importantly, I'd used my platform to mentor young women in business, especially those who'd been told they didn't fit the mold. I'd been invited to speak at conferences about overcoming adversity and standing up to workplace bullies. Every time I told my story, someone would approach me afterward with tears in their eyes, saying, "Thank you, I thought I was the only one." That made everything worth it. As the anniversary party wound down, I walked outside and looked at the building. The historic facade had been restored to its original beauty. The windows glowed with warm light. People streamed in and out, carrying purple shopping bags. Clarabelle had kept the color but changed the logo to a rising sun. A year ago, I'd been told I didn't fit, that I wasn't good enough, that I should shop somewhere else, somewhere appropriate for someone like me. Now I own the building. I'd evicted the person who'd hurt me, and I'd replaced her with something that made the world a little bit better. My name is Nomi, and I learned something important that day in Velvet and Vine. When someone tries to make you feel small, you have 2 choices. You can shrink to fit their narrow view of the world, or you can expand to show them just how wrong they were. I chose to expand. I bought the whole damn building, and I won. Not because Odalys went to prison, not because she lost everything. I won because I refused to let her define me. I won because I turned my pain into purpose. I won because I took something ugly and transformed it into something beautiful. And that victory, that's something no one can ever take away from me.